You sound fine moving your head about there, by the way. There wasn't much of it.
It's because I'm a industry professional, mate. I know that. Episode 265 of the Flagship podcast, and I am joined by, for the first time in well over a year, Martin Melly.
New season's greetings.
And Stephen.
Glad to be here. I feel out of practice with this, to let the listeners in on a secret here. We've worked very hard to not have any kind of break to service here, but this is the first time we've recorded in the same room for as long as I can remember. It is, 16 months or something? Yeah, last March 2020.
And you can feel the chemistry
in
the air.
I'm absolutely buzzing.
There's nothing like that 20-minute Tim's chemistry. You can cut it with a knife. The sexual tension's absolutely unbelievable. I put a picture of this in the Discord saying, for new people to listen to this podcast, we're now filming for YouTube. There's a camera in the corner here. This one won't be on YouTube. This is the dress rehearsal as of next week. All content for the Flagship will be up on the YouTube. Someone says, Jamie been hitting the weights? It's always better when somebody notices, isn't it, Melly?
It was actually Stephen, they said.
Was it?
Yes.
No.
It's actually very difficult. I do go to the gym, but it's actually very difficult for me to get anything done because people come in and think, well, he knows where the weights are kept. I'm going to ask him to show me about it. And by the time I'm in there now, I just get very little done.
Right, okay. I suppose there's the more things change with this podcast, the more things change with Celtic, the more things stay the same. It's starting to feel a bit like Groundhog Day. It wasn't only a couple of months ago that we joked in this podcast that we might as well prepare for Champions League qualifiers with Near Bitton and Stephen Welsh at the centre of defence. Now, it appears as though Celtic have tried to rectify this, Melly, but judging by Ange Postecoglou's comments today, it's almost like Peter Lawwell's still in the room. For those who don't know, maybe you can fill people in.
Yeah, we along with many other Celtic fans, joked months ago, even probably at the start of this year, because we all know January is the big window for Celtic going into the Champions League qualifiers. And what did we do? We sold 2 right backs and brought in 1 on loan, so that we knew, look at the end of this season, Ayer's going to be away, and we're looking at Ralston, Beaton, Welsh, and probably Taylor as our back 4. And you're sort of half joking about it, but kind of it is Celtic, so it's a possibility. And again, with I'm not going to blame Don Mackay or Ange Postecoglou at all here, but again with the board, they're looking at the fans and going, oh, those guys were right, by the way. See, when they said about Neil Lennon had to go, that was right. And now they're looking at this going into huge qualifying games. Underprepared isn't even the word for it. It's disgraceful the way we're looking.
So Ange was asked today about the transfers, and Ange says, we've probably hesitated a couple of times and we could have moved faster on some things. That hasn't helped us. And if there's one thing that you don't want to hear, Stephen, as a Celtic fan, it's this crap about transfers yet again.
It's all our worst fears being confirmed for us. The board must be having kittens at these comments for Ange Postecoglou. No, I'm like Melly, I'm not going to blame Ange Postecoglou for the current state of the squad. How could you? The guy's in a matter of weeks after having spent all the summer chasing Eddie Howe and all that. So he's already on a hiding to nothing, but he is now coming out and confirming for us everything we've ever said about the transfer business at Celtic. He's now, all we're ever fed every season is that we couldn't get this one over the line. We tried really hard to get that one. All we need is 2 or 3 bits of quality in certain positions. We don't need an entire overhaul. Meanwhile, we've got a guy in actually, for once, giving it to us straight, telling us we need players, we need them 3 weeks ago, and it's not happening.
He's not even talking about the bits of quality. Usually managers say we need to get the bits of quality, and I'm just saying I need bodies in. And this stuff about the delays now, me and you were talking a couple of days ago, Melly, and when did Ange join? Was it 4 weeks ago?
Just under 4 weeks ago.
Under 4 weeks ago. He said the other day that transfer deals are taking about 10 to 14 days to complete. So that's 2 weeks from identifying a player to getting them to land at Lennoxtown to begin training. So you can say maybe it took them 2 weeks to identify the players. So not 1 ounce of preparation had begun before Ange Postecoglou walked in the door. Now, some of that, Melly's forgivable, right? But some of it's not. We promised Christopher Ajer we'd sell him in this summer. We said to him last year, we had a conversation at some point last year with Chris Ajer, we're going to let you go in the summer. That conversation probably took place in May. So we promised the best central defender at the club that he's allowed to leave this summer, and we still don't have a replacement for him going into this game. Now, Christopher Ajer was mumping and moaning about not being able to move. I don't really have any concerns about that. We'll sell him. It looks like we're going to get 13.5 million for him as he goes to Brentford. But the fact that We've not got the replacement in. Now, you can say, Melly, we need certain types of player to fill in here, certain types of player to fill in there. How many different variations of a central defender are there? Just go out and get a really good centre half in. I bet Ange Postecoglou would much rather come here with Raphael Varane at centre half and go, I was actually hoping for somebody more in the mould of fucking Chiellini. I could work with that. But he's got nobody now, and now we're scrambling about.
No, and it looks like what we've always thought. Stephen said it was confirmed, and it just looks that way. It looks like Neil Lennon left, or even before that, January. Celtic know these games are coming, but again, these games have appeared out of nowhere when they haven't. What was going on between Neil Lennon leaving and Ange Postecoglou and Dom Mackay coming in? Absolutely nothing from the board. Nothing, because nothing's changed apart from those two coming in. And now, when I spoke to Leo Abada on Friday at the fan media thing, he said he first heard about the interest about 2 weeks ago. So that confirms it takes maybe 2 weeks to sign a player, which is fine. But where's the rest of it? Because that was him. We've got the Japanese boy coming in as well. Really excited about that. But our main priority for this window was always defence. Always defence. We need a right back, we need a left back, and we need at least one centre half, because we know we've lost a player in each of those positions. They weren't good apart from Christopher Ayer, but this was critical. And we're going into these games, huge games, with a makeshift defence again every single season.
Stephen, Dom Mackay's come in, right? And as far as I can tell, okay, we've been to a few fan press conferences and that sort of changed a wee bit, and Dom Mackay sort of spoke to us and says, well, I want to... That's good, okay, right? The slightly improved communication is good. But what I'd prefer is Dom Mackay's the CEO of Celtic, right? That's a big role. You want him to come in with a big announcement. You want a big early win if you're Dom Mackay. Do you not? I mean, okay, Ange Postecoglou, you brought in that guy and he could be a revelation as a manager. Time will tell on that one. But where's the easy win? Where's the top quality centre half? Where's the getting the players in for this thing? I mean, Dom Mackay might have only officially started, whatever of July, but he was doing some work some months ago. He could have said, guys, my priority for me starting, I really want a ready-made list of players ready to go. That's my priority. He's not just making Peter Hall's coffee. He's a professional guy.
He'd have been doing that as well.
He would have been doing that as well.
That's day one.
Yeah. I'll show you where the coffee's made. But I'm thinking, where's the easy win? Well, my priority, guys, as Dom Mackay, is I want a ready-made list of players ready to go. So the minute I come in, 9 o'clock Monday morning, I can start phoning agents and get these deals done for Ange. Never happened. For me, that's a misstep.
Well, I hate always making the very obvious comparison, but you look at Brendan Rodgers and we'd basically Moussa Dembele in a matter of, it seemed like minutes later, it seemed like all these guys were kind of lined up. But in that regard, see, when you're talking about how things maybe seem longer than they took, I mean, Ayer would have been told in 2020 that he's leaving this summer. It's not like 3 weeks ago and we've struggled to replace him. We would have told him back then that, stay for the 10, write yourself into history and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll sell you. And that's the only way I'll understand if Ayer's feeling a bit miffed about it. If he's been promised that move, then it's a kind of legitimate grievance, but he needs to kind of get on with it. But you're right, we do need a little bit more. Less talk, more action, I suppose. I think we needed... I mean, I'm not one of these guys who just kind of fixates on the backroom staff and all that kind of stuff, but we were saying the last time we did a flagship, in fact, that, right, this is a good start, but where's the rest of it? As Melly has already said. That's what... We're now 4 weeks on from our last flagship episode and nothing's really happened in that regard. We've changed manager and CEO and that's it. And now we're scrabbling around looking for players at the last minute. And I do sympathise with Celtic's position here. We're trying to get decent quality players in a summer that's been very tight. There's been a Euros and all that on. But at the same time, this isn't a surprise for Celtic. We go into this every year.
But the thing is, whilst we are saying on one hand it's difficult for us to get players in on time, we've got players at our club moaning that we're not selling them yet.
There we go.
You know what I mean? We're struggling to get them in one door and struggling to keep them from going out the other.
It's the whole thing we've all Celtic fans pretty much have spoke about the whole summer. Like Ange Postecoglou, most people are on board with it, brilliant, but the structure isn't there for him to thrive. It's not there. He's going to come in and he's going to go. The comments today just show But I don't think he's been naive in what he's coming into, but I don't think he's realised that the mess Celtic were in. Like, he's coming over here with little or no help, and he's coming in, and who's he going to? You're saying, I want a list of players. Who's providing this list? There's no director of football. I don't think there's a chief scout anymore. So
Celtic did put up a list of jobs that they're obviously trying to hire, but again
this too late, innit?
Yeah.
Why was this not done in March?
I think, Ange said that they're doing everything in their power to get through these games. Some of the comments, especially after the Preston game, he's no filling me with a great deal of hope.
It sort of shows you as well. Look, maybe we've looked at Ange Postecoglou and thought he's a lol guy or whoever. He's one of these guys that will do what the board says. But with these comments and everything you read about me, he clearly isn't. Like, no manager is going to come in 3-4 weeks into a job and come out with that in the press. I mean, have you ever seen that before from any manager? Normally they'd maybe sugarcoat it a bit. He's not. He's hitting hard because he's going to be the one in the firing line if this goes wrong tomorrow night. And it's not his fault. It's not his fault. The squad he's got here, he's inherited, is not good enough. We've known that all along. So we needed to get players in quickly to help him out, and we have failed to do it. We've brought in 2 players over the last week. Maybe one of them will play. He's a winger.
Yeah.
He's a winger.
Are you familiar with the Jeff Bezos song that's doing the rounds on TikTok just now from
No.
Bull Burnham? It's I think it's CEO and entrepreneur, born in 1974, Jeffrey Bezos.
No.
Have you never heard that song?
No,
I've reworked it for Don Mackay. CEO and real nice guy, born in 1979, because he is Don Mackay. Does that rhyme?
Almost.
CEO and real nice guy, born in 1979.
Right. I had to do a little bit of work there, but I think it works.
Come on, Dom, you can do it. Get some players, put your back into it. I think that needs to be the new TikTok phenomenon.
Copy that. Let's get this going, fellow Celts. Let's get this going in the stand.
Get that clipped to the video editor. If you could get that clipped, that'll go viral, definitely. We're YouTubers now. We're officially podcasters and YouTubers. We're content creators, and what happens is, this is how it starts, Stephen. First you start with a podcast, then you move into YouTube, then we visit the Japanese suicide forest, and then we box Floyd Mayweather. I think that's how this trajectory goes.
Floyd Mayweather would definitely do it as well.
Oh,
he loves a pound note.
Oh.
He absolutely loves a pound note. So I think it's only a matter of a phone call away.
And what age is he?
It's getting past it now.
Have a wee go at him.
3 years could take him.
Yeah, the 3 of us, I guess. Look, we don't want to give Dom Mackay too much of a hard time because he could turn around. He does listen to the podcast. He could turn around and say, look, guys, I've brought in, how many players have we brought in? 5? 5 players. We've brought in Lawwell, Urogide, Melly, fill me in here. The list has grown. Abada, Liam Shaw, and
Kyogo Furuhashi.
Yes, and we're bringing in Furuhashi. The question I would then say, Melly, is how many of those guys are starting 11 players that are in the club right now? How many are starting 11s? I reckon maybe none.
I'd say Furuhashi when he gets here, but again, he's coming over from Japan. He's got to deal with all
when
the
he
things
gets
that
here.
come
I think I'm excited about him. We'll talk about him in more depth in a minute, but I'm talking about the guys that are here already who could potentially play against Midtjylland tomorrow. I don't think any of them will start.
I think Abada might start just out of sheer necessity, despite the fact that he's had one training session on Friday, played on Saturday, and I'm guessing he trained this today, Monday. So he's going to go into a game not knowing the game plan, but the sheer lack of options means he has to play. I don't know what his match fitness is like. He got 30 minutes on Saturday. He looked sharp, but you're going into a Champions League qualifier. It's going to be a tough ask. Midtjylland have already played 1 league game, so they're ahead of us in that aspect. And we've seen with the squad was Fred Bear, but we got a couple of injuries there during the friendlies, and we're playing boys are playing, and we're going into this game tomorrow. Usually we go into these final Champions League qualifiers because we actually win the league, and we're already a mess. We're playing a good team at a very early stage this season, and we're in a worst nick.
He got my hopes up when he said Fred Bear there. I thought it was a guy called Fred that he signed that I'd missed.
Do you know what's really weird? It's like, we've already said this is the first time we've recorded in the same room together for over a year.
We're back, baby. We're absolutely back.
What's very, very weird is I'm now completely unused to beginning to talk and having people look at me. So when I start talking, the two of you look at me and I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I'm
looking
like,
at you like those wee things for the grab machine for Toy Story. Every time you open your mouth.
It's very alien. I'm sure we'll get back to it. These are always difficult. The first couple of episodes of the season.
Well, this is basically pre-season for us, isn't it? It's about getting minutes in the legs, so
minutes
we can
into the headphones,
firing in all syllables. Do you think Ange Postecoglou is looking forward to the prospect of playing Anthony Ralston at right back? As part of the Patreon, and if you don't know, everything you see here, all this new stuff and all the new equipment and the video camera that we're recording on and the ability to put this on YouTube and turn it into something else is all supported by our patrons. If you like what we do and you like the Flagship podcast and you would like some more content from us, full Celtic coverage before, after the games, Celtic history, a whole load of stuff, it's all available on patreon.com/20minutetims. I should do a better pitch. I'll work on a better pitch for next week. Patreon.com/20minutetims if you want to support us. And part of that Ryan has written a predicted 11, which will go up by the time you hear this podcast. He's written a predicted 11 for the Midtjylland game. Ryan has written at right back, Anthony Ralston. Jesus wept is how he's begun his Anthony Ralston description. This right back thing is another position of real concern. Maybe the worst. Well,
I feel like I'm farting on about this every season now with Celtic, but it's the fullback position in modern football is absolutely critical.
Yep.
And I feel like Celtic are just never get it right. Yes, we fluked it with Kieran Tierney, managed to develop a genuinely top class player in Kieran Tierney and had him for a few seasons. But ever since then, Lustig as well, right? We had Lustig for a long time and he was a very, very good right back. But since then, it's been a kind of hodgepodge of a bit of this, a bit of that. Frimpong was a good player, had to be sold for the amount of money that was offered. Fine, I understand that. But ever since then, we've had absolutely nothing. I don't even want to mention the likes of like John Joe Kenny and Jeremy Toljan and all that, right? We've had that. But it's even looking at the Euros, right? The Euros that have just happened there. You look at some of the outstanding players in it, the two teams that got to the final for a start, Italy's, they had a few standouts, but one of their best players, their breakout player was that Spinazzola.
Yeah.
He was absolutely crucial to the way they played. Luke Shaw was a revelation for England as well, scored in the final, was absolutely great.
Mihaila that played for Denmark,
he
was brilliant.
There was a lot of great fullbacks in it. Even England's goal in the final was Kieran Trippier crossing to Luke Shaw and he scored. Fullbacks are everything. And
even what we know about the way Ange Postecoglou likes to play. Even what we've spoken about with the various scouting pods and analysis that we've done on him for the Patreon. Couldn't be clearer.
Yeah, and it's the example I use every season now as well. Look at Man City. If Man City are a team that come up a lot on the podcast because I think despite the fact they're a kind of soulless entity owned by dodgy people, in a footballing sense, they've got a lot right and they've got a lot to try and emulate, in my opinion, regardless of what you think of the club. They spend fortunes trying to sort out their full-back positions. They throw fortunes at it every season. They finally get Cancelo, they've got Kyle Walker now. That is a position of key importance, but Celtic just seem to just throw anything at it. Any old, whoever, are you right-footed? Right, you can play there for a few games in the qualifiers. We'll somehow try and muddle through. We've got Beaton at centre-half. He's the key guy in there. I don't want to be unkind to Greg Taylor, but he is now, if the defence against Preston North End is anything to go by, Greg Taylor is now the senior pro in Celtic's defence with about 50 appearances under his belt.
Well, this is the thing. See, if you look at our lineup, right, a defence or through the team, all through the team, how many players are going to be Ange Postecoglou's first pick, right? So we start at the back, Barkas. Still not clear whether he's his first pick because he's played a lot of minutes pre-season, but so has Bain. Anthony Ralston, definitely not. It could not be his first pick. Stephen Welsh, near Beton. Not. Neither of them are first pick. In fact, neither of them should be first pick for different reasons.
Even then, Beaton's played 45 minutes in the pre-season friendlies out of 4 games, and he's going to be thrown in there probably unless Urahide plays.
Greg Taylor, definitely not first choice, right? Cal McGregor, David Turnbull, accepted.
Yeah, great midfield
have to be.
yeah.
Right wing, Ryan Christie. Might not be first choice come the start of the season. Ryan Christie's another one.
Here.
Yeah, agitating for a move. Leah Labada just in the door. Time will tell whether or not he's going to be first choice. And Odson Edward, another guy who might not be first choice come the beginning of the season.
You missed out Sorrow, I think, as well.
Oh, we did miss out Sorrow, you're quite right. And again, Sorrow for me is a position that we could improve upon.
Definitely.
What's going on? What is going on?
It's all just taking too long, isn't it? And it's the same thing we see every year. But look, I get the fact that these games come a bit earlier, and as Stephen said, there was a Euros on. We need to do things earlier, so do it earlier. Don't use that as an excuse. Get the players in because you're immediately tying your manager's hands behind your back. Now going into this season, because of the rebuild, because of the upheaval. I never thought Celtic would qualify for the Champions League because the path is so hard, as we've seen today with the draw as well. But Midtjylland are the hardest team we could get, but we haven't given Ange a chance. We haven't given her a chance. Chris Sutton said it on Saturday on Premier Sport. He's a manager, he's not a miracle worker. You cannot keep doing this to managers, it's not fair. Brendan Rodgers managed it because he was an exceptional manager and he inherited the best squad out of them all probably, but with this squad you thought, look, Celtic need to bring him in at least 3 players that will start, and as you said, none of them they've brought in so far might start tomorrow, and we're going to be playing with young boys. That defence, we joke about it, but Greg Taylor isn't an Ange Postecoglou player from what I see. Anthony Ralston, for all he tries his heart out, he shouldn't be there anyway, but it's a numbers game. We had to give him a contract, the same with Lee Griffiths. And even going into the midfield, McGregor and Turnbull look great, they could flourish under Postecoglou, but you're still looking at that going, we need a solid defensive midfielder, we maybe got the wingers, and even up front, Edward, if he goes, we need somebody up there with a Yeti to either push him on or be the main man up front. So we're still looking at maybe brought in 5-6 players. We need another 4 probably.
Yeah, it's one of these ones, Stephen, you're looking at Celtic's transfer business and you're thinking, how does this come about? So Ange Postecoglou comes in, desperately need players. Anthony Ralston, need to give him a new contract. We don't have a right back just now and he's about to walk out the door. Red flag. Lee Griffiths, need to give him a new contract. Edward's about to walk out the door. We don't know what's happening with Albina Yeti, whether he wants to stick about. So there's a red flag. You give Lee Griffiths a new contract. Sign a couple of youngsters for the cross-border thing, right? Fair enough, we do that every year. You don't need to be a genius to work out. That's a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Abada comes in, a Dudu Dahan special.
Yeah.
We need well, let's speak Dudu. Who have you got in Israel that you can hook us up with? There's this winger, he's no bad. £3.5 million, by the way.
Money.
A lot of money for a guy who, having a quick look at him, looks just okay. He looks just okay.
Yeah,
and then we're bringing in Furuhashi, who looks like a really exciting prospect.
Yeah.
We'll talk about him. Furuhashi looks like an exciting prospect, tremendous J-League player, one of the best players in J-League, but that's somebody that Ange already knew.
Yeah.
So that you can almost picture the transfer meeting. Right, who do we know? Get your phone out. Ange, who do you know? Or let me phone my pal back in Japan. Or I've still got Peter gave me Dudu Dahan's number. Let me get on the phone to it. It's like a mad right. We better give 2 contracts to Griffiths, and it's like a mad scramble. You can picture it in your head.
You can, and the thing is, see the players we've brought in, I'm happy with them all. They're all good, but it's too late. Even Carl Starfelt, right, fair enough, that'll be the centre half. But it's 3 weeks too late because he's not even going to get a friendly match in before the season starts by the looks of it. The same with Furuhashi. And when you're looking at this, yes, Celtic have brought in a new manager, they've got in Don Mackay, but it's the same avenues we're going down. Celtic's problem over the last 3-4 years has been recruitment. I haven't seen an influx of new people coming in that's doing this recruitment. It's going to be the same people that identified people last year and the season before, and all of a sudden when we're in this rebuild, we need every one of these players to be decent or very good, but the same guys are bringing them up, so it is a worry. And look, it's not fair on Ange's, obviously. I think he's the one that's put forward Furuhashi, fair enough, but Abada, okay, the guys from Sheffield Wednesday were probably on the radar before. Starfelt looks like he might be one of Ange's guys, but you're giving him these guys, but at the same time, you're still very wary because of who's.
I mean, well, Liam Shaw was a deal in January. He was a pre-contract, and he looks decent.
Yes,
he looks like a decent player, but again, he doesn't strike me as someone that's going to start every game. In fact, Soro got more minutes than him in pre-season, I think, and that probably gives you an indication. Furuhashi says he's a player of real quality. Said Ange, I think he will add something special to our squad and someone that the fans will excite.
Yeah,
Melly, I'm always encouraged when we sign someone in the mould of this guy. So, and you can always tell by the reaction of the current fans, the teams that he's got over there in Kobe, they're going absolutely mental about this. There's all these journalists, rather, I was about to say internationals, there's all these journalists and all that talking about Japanese football, saying this guy's going to light up the Scottish League. Yeah. From what I've seen from the YouTube videos, and we're going to get him scouted, obviously, so it's something we do for Patreon, it looks like he's going to piss it up here, Stephen.
Well, one would certainly hope so, but to me, I think it's just about shirt sales. And it's about cornering that untapped Japanese market. See that part of it hits every time there's like a Japanese player. It's bordering on slightly dodgy.
You think I think people will still get. Remember, like David Beckham was a sensation in Japan. Yeah. I think people still think that might be the Japanese attitude to football that everyone does. Now, shirt sales do work, right? Because famously Juventus paid for the Ronaldo transfer with shirt sales. but that's Ronaldo.
Yeah. All you need to be is one of the world's most famous people, and the shirts will fly off the shelves. I'm only bring it up jokingly, of course, but I think that I do get it, right? If you want to sort of broaden your appeal in other markets, fine, but you do not sign players purely so you can sell shirts. No. That's absurd. I mean, Japanese people aren't. They're not going to rush out and buy shirts just because we've signed any Japanese person. He has to be quite good at football for him to capture the imagination.
14 goals in 20 games.
Yeah. It looks like a star. And we have all seen the YouTube clips going around. You don't get that kind of send-off that he got from the fans and their players if you're just some random nobody. Now, these might be famous last words and he might turn it to be a complete flop, but I can't see it. If you've got guys like Iniesta talking him up, that is of some note, surely. Yeah. I mean, that goes some kind of way. I know in the past we've had the chat that Henrik Larsson recommended Bangura, and Pierre Van Hooijdonk talked up Nadir Chifchi because it was his client and all that. Right? So it's not an absolute guaranteed seal of quality if a amazing player talks you up. But at the same time, Andres Iniesta is one of the guys I'm perfectly willing to listen to. So yeah, it seems like a positive signing. If I could, I'm going to offer a kind of devil's advocate, a dick advocate, if you will, on the signings thing. You know, I'm not excusing Celtic, but it is a very difficult position they're in every year because see when we talk about Dudu Dahan, that is, whether we like it or not, that's the way a lot of football business gets done, right? We have relationships with
they usually
with
get
agents.
Good players, but
but that's my point. If you've
he's no George Mendes,
exactly. See, if you pick up the phone to George Mendes in May trying to get a transfer done, he'll trying to get his clients' attention while they're floating on a lilo with a cocktail in their hands, right? You're trying to paddle in the lilo to give them the phone. Celtic are on the phone. You wouldn't be doing your job as an agent if you weren't to say to that player, look, right, Celtic want to sign you right now. They want to pitch you into pre-season in June, and we've got qualifiers around the corner. But see, if you wait a few weeks, West Ham might come in for you and you might get 3 times the money. So I'm not saying Celtic are without fault here, but I'm just offering a kind of alternative view on what it must be like to try and attract a player of a certain level at this stage in the summer. I don't think it's probably as easy as we'd like to think, but I'm sure we don't have to go for players who are playing in the Euros or who play in the Premier League or League 1 or anything like that. There must be quality out there. It just feels like, I mean, I can
we're not
only
doing a good enough job looking for it. I think that's what it is. I don't think we're doing it.
See, on Furuhashi, I was reading up on him, and look, he's been scouted for years, but one of the things that kept him at Kobe was Podolski came in, he thought he could learn from him. David Villa came in, one of my favourite players, he thought he could learn from him. Iniesta came in, and then they got into the Asian Champions League. So there's been stuff keeping him there. But PSV, teams from Belgium, other teams from the Netherlands have been watching this guy. But Celtic have stole a march here and got in there early.
But we paid $4 million for him. But we let him play another game. But you don't want to fall out with it. You don't want to fall out with his team because you don't want to end that Kobe beef.
100% worth it there. That was absolutely worth it.
Could see him winding that one up there, couldn't you?
I was like,
so we've sort of stolen a march there and get in there early, but this is why you can, while I get what Stephen's saying, you can do things early, because see with the Eddie Howe thing, we should have been, right, you've got a deadline here, and if we've no met it, we have to move on. But Celtic don't. They seem to have Eddie Howe and these list of players, and if that goes wrong, there's no backup plan. There's backup plan.
I mean, it remains to be seen. We might be flooded with incoming players. Yeah. And, losing to Midtjylland is not the end of the world. I think we're all pretty realistic about our chances against Midtjylland here. They're a decent team, Melly. There's some decent results last season in Europe.
Yeah, they did. They got into the Champions League, which is better than us over the past 3 seasons. They had a poor start, but they found their form and they drew 2 games in a very hard group that contained Liverpool and Atalanta. It was a very interesting group. Every team in it was decent and had their own style of football, so it was interesting to watch. And they sort of fared their own, but they did lose the league last season. They lost to Brøndby, which they're a decent team, but Midtjylland have always been up there. And out of all the draws, it was the hardest one. But we seem to be making it harder for ourselves, don't we? There's no away goals, so there's that. So we can maybe that'll work in our favour. But you're looking at the last 2 friendlies, we haven't scored.
No.
We haven't scored, and we're looking at that defence. The only real position of strength we have is in midfield, so we're going to need to be relying on Turnbull and Callum McGregor. But if anything will happen to those two, we're threadbare underneath that as well.
Stephen, if we lose to Midtjylland, or if we beat Midtjylland, rather, we get Europa League football no matter what. But we're awaiting for, is it the other side of that ties PSV or Galatasaray, two very difficult ones. If we lose, we go on to play Jablonek, is that
something like that,
Jablonek, that's how we pronounce that, to qualify for the Europa League, and then failing that we end up in the UEFA Conference League or some such thing.
Playing a team from the Czech Republic, what could go wrong there, lads?
Yeah, I mean the news today. Obviously, I was starting to feel a certain kind of way again about Midtjylland. I've been kind of ambivalent towards Champions League qualification all along. I thought we might have a decent chance against Midtjylland. I don't think they're as good as maybe we're making out.
No.
They are to be.
It's more about the state of us, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly my point. It's like now that we may or may not beat Midtjylland, but I realise the pronunciation of Midtjylland is kind of oscillating a little bit when I'm saying that. I think I had about 3 different versions here. But if we come up against Midtjylland and we're maybe evenly matched, but I feel like with the announcement today, with the draw that's been made, I feel like it might be fairly academic, to be honest.
Yeah.
If Galatasaray and PSV are much better than anything we're likely to come up against in this stage of any other season, given the route we've got, I would be worried about Celtic's chances if we were playing against PSV or Galatasaray in a group. Never mind this form of Celtic. Celtic in this current state, I would be deeply worried about that.
At what point do we judge Ange then? At what point do you judge him if he loses against Midtjylland, right? I've got the sense that there's almost a free pass for Ange Postecoglou
in this
for this game. So I get the sense that there's maybe a free pass. Do you agree with that? You think he should get a free pass?
I agree with that, because when you look at that squad, as you said, none of the new signings could start. It's not his players. It's not even like Neil Lennon players really either. It's guys that have before that, guys that have stuck around, and it's not a good squad. What I would say is he gets the Midtjylland game a free pass, and look, it's not a definite loss. Midtjylland are in a bad way as well. Their main striker has went on strike because he wants to seal a move. They've got one of the better players moving to Brentford. They've got another 2 players one of them's Australian. He is homesick, so he's back there, and they've got another player who's not going to be available. He's refusing to play. So they've got 4 of their main starters out. That should be a great.
And Sechenko's a captain, and he's rubbish.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, we did identify him. Ange's that high. But with Ange, I think we give him a free pass in this game. If he can get through it, maybe he is the miracle worker. But we have to get into the Europa League group stages. But I think with the turnaround in the squad, we're going to have to get to the end of August, see what we can do with the squad, and then into September before I can properly judge him. And I think most people will do the same, because we've seen how terrible this squad is. We've seen the state the Celtic have been in the summer. It's been laughable. You're kind of half joking when you say we'll probably do this. And we're sitting in the reality here today, the 19th of July, and we haven't brought in one player who's definitely going to be a first team starter.
Does Europa League qualification, Stephen, making that Europa League group represent a good result for a team in such a mess and is such a state of flux with a brand new manager that Celtic have got?
Well, purely
because it's no worse than we've done in recent years.
No, you're right, and purely on the current circumstances, not existing in a vacuum and all that. I think what we're looking at right now, any kind of European competition after a certain early point would represent something of a success. I don't think we need to get into the Champions League. It would be really nice. That's the standard by which we judge Celtic at all times, but I think we need to be realistic. I think we need to look at that team, and I honestly, Mel and I did the reaction to the Preston North End game, and we talked about the state of that team. Now, the lineup that goes out against Midtjylland can only pleasantly surprise me. That's the only thing that can possibly happen after the Preston game. I don't want to focus on the negatives of the players, but I need to be realistic. I look across that defence, which looks a shambles. There's no getting away from it. We do this every year, and I think I'm not in any way judging any of the merits of these individual players. Like guys like Urhoghide and Stephen Welsh are still developing players. Ralston, I don't think is still developing, but I look at that and I think that might be the least prepared defence we've ever put out in a Champions League qualifier.
Here's the thing though, we've got Christopher Julian's injured, but we've got Christopher Ajer still employed by Celtic. You're laughing, right? Still paid by the club. Christopher Ajer, he wants to leave. He's been bumping his gums to MD that will listen to him. The now MD with any reach, any influence at all. He's been letting these people know that he wants to leave. Glasgow. But at the end of the day, he's employed by Celtic. Celtic have been really good to Christopher Ajer, gave him new contracts, a lot of money, developed him into the player he is. If Ange Postecoglou turns to Christopher Ajer and goes, Chris, I need you on Tuesday night. I need you to turn out. I mean, me as a Celtic fan, I'm expecting to see Christopher Ajer. We're just assuming he's not going to play.
Well, he's not in the squad, so
of course, the squad was announced today, wasn't it? And he didn't even make that. To me, that's a disgrace.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable for me. Is Christopher Ajer just down in tools here because he's not getting the move he wants?
it works both ways. We can moan about Celtic not going and paying the money, but we've seen in the past, if you just go and pay any money and you accept any money, that's not really how transfers work. You try to get the best deal for yourself in buying and selling. That's exactly what Celtic are trying to do. If Christopher Ajer wants to leave, that's fine. But Celtic don't have to accept the first offer.
No.
Don't have to accept the second offer. If Celtic get offered 13 million, okay. But how does that break down? I don't want to get into the whole structure of it, but if that's over 4 years and with plenty of incentives, Celtic are well within their right to reject any offer for Christopher Ajer and get the best deal for themselves, because you can bet your bottom dollar Christopher Ajer will want the best deal for himself.
And the Celtic fans have put up with Christopher Ajer. They've given him time to develop. The Celtic have given him time to develop as well. And, you know, just to see that he's more or less down in tools leaves quite a bit of taste. I mean, I am very reluctant. There's a thing going on now I've noticed, especially on social media and all that, where people start their opinions by, okay, Celtic are bad, so how does that square the circle around to Celtic being bad, right? Yeah. Now, that sort of happened with Christopher Ajer, but for me, Christopher Ajer's entirely in the wrong here.
Yeah.
It depends. Well, no, wait a minute. It doesn't depend, right? But what I mean is, we're not privy to what exactly Christopher Ajer has been promised. And I said earlier that he's probably been told as early as last year that he can go. Right, as soon as we've sealed the tent, secured the 10, it'll be brilliant. We'll have parades in the street and all that. You'll be out the door by May. Like first decent offer we get for you within reason.
Nobody
you'll be
leaves
sold
in May,
off.
but
No. Well, May's just an example. But what I mean by that is that you're not going to end up being pitched into qualifiers the next season, right? It depends on that. But where I draw the line is that transfers are, they're pretty nebulous things, right? Things are always happening, things are always falling through. How many transfers have you heard about over the years that just fall through for whatever reason, right? So things develop, deals are withdrawn, bids are rejected. Things change all the time. You have to adjust to that. If you're not being sold right at this minute, well, tough shit. You know
One thing we certainly didn't say to Christopher Ajer was, no matter what happens, no matter who comes in for you, no matter how much we bid, we'll let them go. We'll let you go.
No.
Certainly didn't say that. And Ange Postecoglou said in the first couple of weeks.
Imagine they did. That's Neil Lennon pissed.
That was a Neil Lennon promise. Do you know what? You fucking, when there was some big argument, Neil Lennon went, first good offer, you're out the door. And then Chris has went, well, I'm holding you to that. It's almost a moot point now. The guy's decided he's never going to play for Celtic again, and Cham's another one. He wasn't included in the squad, was he? It looks like he's on his way out the door. I'm fine with that. And Cham's not kicked the ball for Celtic for the best part of 2 years now.
Griffiths in though, every cloud.
Yes, there we go.
Griffiths in. You're still thinking about the bad news, aren't you? But I mean, Ajer would have been absolutely crucial to this, and I get it, right? It's complicated. He probably wants out the door and doesn't want to be pitched into qualifiers. Right? I understand that. It's complicated, these things, but we need somebody there, because I find myself circling back to it again, but I look at that defence and I'm extremely worried about it, given the run around the other night by Ched Evans. And I know it's only a friendly, but it's a recurring theme we've seen for 2 seasons now. Anyone it's not like a top quality striker. We're not talking about, I don't know, Diego Costa or something like that. Or Edison.
Still available on a free?
Yeah, well, get him in. Or Mackay out. It's not Edison Cavani. It's none of these guys. It's just any type of physical striker, and Celtic's defence just falls to bits. Just given the runaround by any kind of decent, solid target man. And it happened again the other night. Melly, you said that
we could have recorded this podcast at any time of last season.
Yeah, just
it's so frustrating.
But Melly, you mentioned that their striker's going on strike, but they did lose at the weekend.
Yeah, they did.
I noticed that Sisto scored against them, and I remember him for 2 things. One, he scored against Man United a couple of seasons ago, and 2, the thong song.
Yeah. That was nearly snuck under the radar there.
Just see, looking at that Celtic defence that will likely play tomorrow, it's Ralston, Beaton, Welsh and Taylor. See, by the end of this transfer window, I expect none of them to be starters for Celtic. I expect a right back and left back to be brought in, Carl Starfelt as well, and probably if Julian's fit by then, he'll be the main man. Stephen Welsh is the only one I can say, fair enough if he plays, but you'd want somebody
I want Stephen Welsh to be like 4th choice centre half.
I would
take Christopher Julian, Starfelt if he's coming in, one more, and then Stephen Welsh. That's the way I would want my centre halves lining up. I mean, how many games has he played? 22 games for us or something, professional games. It's mental that he's even in the discussion.
It's maybe not even that with Welsh. Is it terribly unkind of me as well to say that, you know, Welsh did a decent job last season, but his main strength is that he's not Shane Duffy. That was his main thing. I think he was all right, but we talk about red flags.
He's not made any mistakes, has he?
No. I think he was pitched in against Rangers and AC Milan and was maybe found a wee bit wanting, but that wasn't his fault. But we talk about red flags and contracts being issued. Ralston got 1 year, Griffiths got 1 year, but we gave Stephen Welsh a 4-year contract, and
it's probably pennies. I mean, it's probably relative buttons.
But see, at the same point, we've been going back a while. We lost Liam Miller, who was a good player, because he wasn't in a contract. Where's the line then?
Yeah.
Do you give him a 2-year contract, then lose him if he's really good, or do you tie him down on a decent deal? Because look,
as well, we probably weren't in the best negotiating position. His agent went, my client was 4 years. I
don't know if you want to tie these young players down, it does make him a bit difficult. Like Tony Ralston, if he wants to go, he's on a better wage.
Four's kind of the standard for Celtic now, isn't it? Four basically gives you 2 years of the player, and then the option to sell him in the third year before you get into this situation.
Plus, I've got no problem with the fact that if we have Julian and Starfelt as our 2 centre halves, and Christopher and Stephen Welsh is the guy underneath that's fine. That's what you want from your youth development. That's what you want. You want to bring in guys who are either first team starters or who are good squad players that can be relied upon. Stephen Welsh was a kind of shining light in a bad season, but I'd quite like to see him in a good team because he doesn't make many mistakes for me. He's fine, but I don't think he's going to be any better than that. He'll be like a Stephen McManus, just maybe a Steve McManus light, maybe a Darnell D, somebody that can come in, do a job and go out when the main guys are there.
Speaking of academy players, Celtic have got a new captain, former academy player, joined the club when he was 11 years old. Callum McGregor, Celtic's 22nd captain, up there with the likes of Kenneth Dalglish, Jock Stein, Paul Lambert,
Stephen Presley for a game,
Presley, Neil Lennon, Scott Brown. It's an important role. Like the Celtic captain, I think, is a really. I know, like captaincy in football is a bit duff sometimes, isn't it? It's a bit of a duff, prospect who's the captain. But it's a prestigious thing to have, and a lot of responsibility and a lot of weight comes with being Celtic captain, especially continuing. Don't need to even talk about last season. We know how bad last season was, but especially continuing the tradition of keeping the standards up, keeping the winning mentality going. Not to mention being the manager's guy on the field. I can't think of a better player that fulfills the role of Celtic captain.
Big surprise that he got it.
Big surprise. It was a toss-up between him and Lee Griffiths. I think Lee Griffiths has got vice captain.
He works on a number of levels.
Yeah, he certainly does.
Yeah, he's the ideal man for me. I think the captain's the shouty guy is a thing of the past, isn't it? But from what I look for in a Celtic captain, not ideal, but he's came through the youth. He knows exactly what it takes. He's won many a trophy. He's learned from Scott Brown over the years. And the most important thing for me is, and you heard that a lot in these friendly games, the way the games were set up in Wales and that, he dictates the game. He's talking to everybody. He just seems to be the guy that's taken over from Scott Brown. When we spoke to Liam Shaw in the press conference, he said Cal McGregor's the man that sets the standards. He's at a good age now. He's 28 years old, where he's at the peak of his career. He's probably realised Celtic's where it's going to be for him, and I think he's settled into it, and I think he's the ideal guy. I get the fact that maybe some people might think he might not be one of those guys that can get you going, but I think he is. I think when you look at Callum McGregor, you see a guy that he gives you at least a 7 out of 10 every week.
Yeah.
So that's the standard, and then he sets the standards. He's constantly talking, but the main thing for me is, if you're looking at any Celtic lineup throughout that squad, if there's a guy that will take the ball off you when you're in trouble, it will be Callum McGregor. You will give him the ball and he'll take the brunt of it. He'll try and find somewhere to go with it, and that's what you need, somebody that is going to bail you out. Callum McGregor.
Another thing I've liked of Callum McGregor, Stephen, is two things. One, when the team was playing shite last season under Neil Lennon, it wasn't shine letting people know. No. When he let them, he goes, we're disjointed as everything, we don't know. There was that, which really impressed me. Also, even some of this pre-season stuff under Ange, he's talking about the manager's systems, the rotations he's trying to play. It's up to us to make. So he knows the game. You can tell he's an intelligent footballer. But he also, for me, strikes me, and this is the most important thing for me for a Celtic captain, is somebody that understands what it is. It sounds cliche, but you need to understand what it is to play for Celtic. You need to understand the standards that are required to win. And he's a young guy. He's signed a 5-year contract, I think, up until 2024. The amount of stuff he's won, the amount of games
trophies.
he's played, 15 trophies. Got his debut under Ronnie Dyler, went away on loan to Notts County for a season where he played with Euro 2020 star Jack Grealish. He's the ideal guy, but for me, the most important, the key attribute is he knows what it takes. He's got the standards.
Oh yeah, and possibly more important than that, in my opinion, is that he's a cracking player. He's an absolute top. I mean, top class is maybe stretching it, because that's like Marco Verratti and all that, right? Okay, but Callum McGregor and Celtic,
he's as good as Celtic are going to. He's as good as the bums in this league are ever going to see.
Exactly. In Celtic terms, he is a top class player. I've not got any concerns over this part about how he doesn't shout at people and he doesn't drive the team on. You
don't know that. You might not do that, but you're saying I'm not saying you don't know that. Yeah. What I'm saying is people do say, "Oh, he doesn't shout." You need to be. You don't know what happens when it gets in the training, when it gets in the changing room at half time.
Even at that, there are different types of captain. Like Scott Brown had absolutely busting out of every pore of him. That's not really the norm. You don't look across other major European clubs and find a guy like that. That was not unique to Scott Brown, but it was very Scott Brown. If you
dying breed, so
yeah, exactly. So there are different ways to lead by example, and one of them has been the type of player the type of very, very consistent player that Callum McGregor is. He didn't have a good season last season, of course not, but now that added responsibility now, it's his midfield. He's the main guy in there. I think he'll flourish. He's done it before. We've had periods during which Scott Brown wasn't available or he'd fallen out of favour a little bit, and Callum McGregor either anchored the midfield or played a slightly different role, and he was absolutely fine. He thrived in it, if anything. It's interesting what you should say there, Melly, about how he's the type of guy who will always be available to be passed to. He's the guy that will bail you out, because I'm actually currently reading Ange Postecoglou's book.
Check your big brain. Check your big brain on Arbuckle.
I read a book a week, so but I'm actually reading it, and that actually stood out to me. He addressed that cliche that you often find with football ever since the Barcelona days, their peak under Pep Guardiola. The cliche is often that we want to play like Barcelona, we want to have that free flowing football, and it's easier said than done. And I've often thought, I've been guilty in the past of thinking, well, it's easy to say that, or it's easy to be Barcelona when you've got three of the probably the top 4 players in the world all playing at the same time. But Ange Postecoglou actually disagrees with that. He disagrees directly with that. He says it's not about having the best players in the world. If you don't have the best players, simplify it, make the passes shorter and easier, work harder for your teammates. It's all very simple stuff, but it's something that hadn't really occurred to me before. Make angles for your teammates. You don't have to be Iniesta if you're working extra hard for your teammates. And he mainly cites the ability for everyone to buy into what they're trying to do and the togetherness on the pitch that will have a team playing like a sort of proto-Barcelona. You don't have Iniesta, you don't have Dani Alves, you don't have Messi in your team, but that doesn't mean you can't try and emulate that by working hard for your teammates.
And the thing for me about Callum McGregor is he's 28 now. He's obviously, the rumours about him wanting to leave a couple of seasons ago, they were rife. There's been a couple of times when Callum McGregor's wanted to leave. There's probably opportunities. If Callum McGregor picked up the phone to his agent this summer and says, look, I'm trying to get a move, he would get a lot of good clubs. Yeah. He's going to be precious about his career. So to sign on and become Celtic captain, it's not the sort of thing you just do for a season and then leave. So I'm wondering if he's maybe had assurances. I don't think Callum McGregor's the sort of guy who's going to be shy and going to the manager, going to the CEO and saying, this is what I need here. Yeah. This is what I had under Brendan Rodgers. This is how this club thrived. This is the standards you need to keep players like me and bring players in my standard. And I think that's so important, especially the way things have been going with Celtic the last couple of seasons, and this chip in the way at this standard. If you've got guys about who are expecting and who are used to a certain standard, these guys are not going to sign on and watch it crumble around them. I just don't see it.
Well, we've seen that with the manager as well today, coming out and saying that. I mean, a month into the job and he's coming out and saying we're taking too long to do things. Him and Callum McGregor will speak about this stuff and want to get it sorted. The way he talks about how he's going to... Ange Postecoglou had to sell this to Callum McGregor as well, didn't he? And McGregor probably had to sell himself to Ange Postecoglou and his performances, and he's done that in pre-season. He's been great. He was great for Scotland. He looks a bit revitalised under Postecoglou, but the two of them will be talking every day. And look, he was a disciple of Brendan Rodgers. He knows what it takes to win at Celtic, and he knows it's not good enough currently, so it's going to be up to the board to get the two of them what they need.
It's actually an interesting angle. Having given that speech there about Ange Postecoglou's philosophy, his beliefs on that style of football, you could take that one of two ways. I hope Don Mackay isn't reading the book as well and it's saying, like, it says here, chapter 3, you can play like Barcelona with any old shite players. It's not about having the best players. You can do it with anyone. So, noted.
So we know we've got Callum McGregor committed to the club for the summer. James Forrest, I think he's self-isolating or back to training or something like that. Anyway, he was identified as a close contact. He's committed to the club. The transfer window closes at the end of August.
It does what? Sorry, Jamie?
It slams shut at the end of August.
Better.
I think we've got a fair idea of who's going to be leaving. We kind of know already who's going to be leaving. We kind of know where we need to strengthen and what positions we need to strengthen in. It's just another case of it's all come too soon for Celtic, and we're still sowing the seeds, or we're still reaping rather, the seeds that we sowed of last season. You know, all this stuff seems to be having a knock-on effect. Keeping guys from last season seems to be affecting us now. It's all knocking on. We're heading into Midtjylland tomorrow, Melly. I know that's not how you pronounce it. I just want you to sum up, just to end the podcast, how confident are you? And you can even stick a wee prediction on the end if you fancy it. Before we do that, hey, no fixes here, but you guys won the ballot.
We did, yeah.
Two out of the three of us are going to the game tomorrow.
We quote, and I'm doing big air quotes here, won the ballot, thanks Don Mackay, because he acknowledges that fan media is more important than the normal fans. So he punted us a couple of tickets.
So he should.
We're joking, by the way.
Just remember to wear your club ties. It's going to be Scotch Hill tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be some day back to Celtic Park. I think, how many people are going to be there? 9,000.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird. It's going to be weird. It's going to be a weird situation. It's going to be a weird scenario. But there is a game of football to be played, Melly. Final thoughts on Midtjylland tomorrow. Give me a prediction.
Very looking forward to going to the game, not so much the game. I think Celtic, we've all spoken about it, wildly underprepared. I think I've never been less confident of Celtic in a Champions League qualifying game. One each at a prayer.
One each at a prayer, Stephen.
No, unfortunately, I have to largely agree with that. I'm not confident at all. I'm actually quite nervous about it now. As I said earlier, I don't think Midtjylland are any great cracks or anything like that. They're not like a top class European team. This is purely boils down to everything we've already said tonight about how undercooked Celtic are and the state that we currently find ourselves in, the nick of the squad, the likely players. Now, as I said, I can only be pleasantly surprised if I turn up and there are a few players in there that I didn't expect to play. Good.
Yeah.
No, that's basically good. We might end up, to be honest, I can't really put any names on that because it might only extend to quote unquote seasoned pros. It might be guys like Bolingoli and Beaton and all that. And how excited about that I can be, I don't know. But the alternative is it's a fairly unprepared
We
team.
forgot to mention Bolingoli. We forgot to mention Bolingoli, the prodigal son. I saw some Celtic fans on Twitter, one in particular, saying that Bolingoli shouldn't be allowed to buy a shirt, never mind wear a shirt. He's been nicknamed Tim Crow, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Stephen Bolingoli has sort of... he's had a bit of a renaissance, hasn't he? People, whilst he came, you guys said he was rotten. We all agreed that Bolingoli was pretty rotten. He disappeared, got some Champions League football, though when you actually look into how much Champions League football he actually got is debatable. How much he played, how many times. I think he was subbed 3 out of the 4 games and he lost about 15 goals. So I don't think he's like a rock solid at the back of that defence. Now he's back. Do you see a return for Bolingoli? Could tomorrow be the remaking of Bolingoli and Bombo?
No. Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, it depends who
Do you know
we're
what?
stuck with.
He could be the canary in the coal mine. See if Bolingoli stands out tomorrow. That's an indication of how bad the team has gotten. If the best player on the Celtic pitch, the best player in a Celtic shirt is Bolingoli, you look at that and go, Jesus, man.
What if he doesn't start in that defence? Then it's you can't even start in that defence.
If he doesn't start in that defence, he just needs to go. He just needs to go.
Well, I said on our Patreon reaction the other night, it's like he constantly makes me question myself. And no, I mean, I'm not some font of knowledge. I wouldn't say I know.
Hey, we've been doing this for 7 seasons. We know all there is to know.
I wouldn't say I know better than anyone else, but he's one of those guys who, I say that off mic, but he's one of these guys who I'm assured via a number of data enthusiasts and stat people and all that he is actually a good player. I just can't make the connection. I can't draw the line between these stats that show him as a good player and what he actually turns in on the pitch, because to me he looks dreadful, absolutely terrible. So I don't know what metrics are showing up that make him look good, but I'll give him a chance. If he plays, then fine, but it's about time he probably turned up and did something. This will be season 3 of Bowling
Mental.
Goalie, won't it?
Absolutely mental. Look, and on that bombshell, I think this is a good place to wrap.
Whoa.
What?
Geesh your predictions, lad. Don't just leave
You're
me.
looking at me there, like, you're a wee bit scared, right? Prediction for tomorrow. You know what? You're going 1-1. I'm going to start off. First prediction season, I'm going to start off on a positive. I'm going to say Celtic are going to win 2-0.
Oh.
2 each for me, I think. Yeah, I'll again, if the lineup shows up and it's overwhelmingly positive, it blows my socks off, then fine. But given the preparation we've had, I can't see anything better than a draw. I'll be pleasantly surprised if we do, but I'm going for a 2-2 draw.
Big couple of weeks for Celtic coming up. It's the right time to bring the Flagship podcast back. This one is available as audio only, but from next week we will be producing this as live and in glorious Technicolor HD, available on YouTube. Our YouTube channel's 20 Minute Tims. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Android. But you're listening to it, you know where to get it. So subscribe to the podcast. If you want extra content from us, and we'll do more, I'll do a better advert for the Patreon, but people know it by now. Patreon.com/20 Minute Tims. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to all the listeners, but especially our patrons.
Yeah.
Last season was crap. It was really shite, but the amount of people that stuck with us on Patreon, and we all helped each other through it, and also the support that you guys gave this podcast has allowed us to completely invest in all new equipment, brand new studio, everything paid for. Thank you so much to the patrons for that.
Yes.
Yeah, and on that, if there's anything that sounds slightly different about this episode, we are trying to work through a few things. We've got all new equipment, as I say, so thanks to the patrons for that, but we will get there eventually. We're feeling our way through the new studio. Looks good. Looks good. I'm looking about here, feels professional.
I'm very sticky. It's very, very warm. It's about 30 odd degrees outside, but we'll just have to deal with it. When the winter comes, we can all huddle up and cuddle each other, get 20 Minute Tims fleeces. And on that, thank you so much for listening.